It's night in East Africa, 1 million years ago. The sun went down 2 hours back. The world has shrunk to whatever your hands can touch. Leopards hunt at night. Hyenas hunt at night. You can hear them and you cannot see them. Nothing you do changes that until the sun returns. Every animal on this planet lived under that rule. Then one group of primates broke it. In 2012, a team led by Francesco Berna published something odd. Wonderwerk Cave, South Africa, 30 meters back from the entrance. In a layer dated to 1 million years old, they found ash from burned grass and twigs. Alongside it, bone fragments heated to around 500 degrees Celsius. The ash never blew in from outside. Something burned inside that cave on purpose. Israel, a site called Gesher Benot Yaakov. Nama Goren Inbar found burned flint chips in tight clusters, 790,000 years old. The clusters mark where hearths sat. Same spots, layer after layer, across tens of thousands of years. Begin with the plainest thing a fire does. It throws heat, and heat keeps a body alive. Below about 25 degrees, a human body sheds warmth fast. Shivering burns calories you might not have to spare. A fire covers that gap and asks for firewood. It also holds a line predators will not cross. Big cats circle a camp all night, staying outside the light. At Swartkran's cave in South Africa, the lower layers are full of hominin bones, chewed by leopards. Higher up, around 1 million years old, burned bone appears. Now the part that rebuilt the human body. A chimpanzee spends 4.5 hours a day chewing. You spend about 35 minutes. That gap came from heat. Cooking gelatinizes starch and unfolds protein, and it breaks down the connective tissue in meat. Food reaches your gut already half-processed. Rachel Carmody tested this at Harvard with mice. Identical meat and sweet potato, served raw or cooked. The mice on cooked food gained more weight. Same material, more calories delivered. Fire released them. Watch what happens to the skeleton after that. Homo erectus arrives about 1.9 million years ago with smaller teeth, a shorter jaw, a narrower rib cage. A narrow rib cage means a smaller gut. In 1995, Leslie Aiello and Peter Wheeler ran the numbers. Gut tissue and brain tissue cost about the same per gram. Shrink one and you can afford the other. Australopithecus carried roughly 450 cubic centimeters of brain. Erectus about 900. You carry around 1,350. That brain burns 1/5 of your calories at rest. Raw food cannot pay that bill. There is a modern check on this. Karina Kerbnik surveyed 513 Germans living on strictly raw diets. 1/3 of them were underweight. Half the women under 45 had stopped menstruating. They had blenders, dehydrators, and supermarkets open all winter, and their bodies still ran at a deficit. Some of you are already objecting. Anyone can carry a branch out of a wildfire. Starting a flame on demand takes real technique. The answer sits in the toolkit they left. Andrew Sorensen examined Neanderthal hand axes from France and found wear marks with traces of pyrite. Strike pyrite against flint and you get sparks. Those hand axes run about 50,000 years old. Otzi, the Iceman, died in the Alps 5,300 years ago, carrying tinder fungus and lumps of pyrite in a pouch. Nobody was standing around waiting on lightning. The ignition kit travelled with the group. Warm and fed, people walked into places that should have killed them. Boxgrove, southern England, 480,000 years ago. A latitude that freezes solid every winter. The Clacton spear point from Essex, about 400,000 years old, has a tip hardened in a fire before use. Kostenki, on the Don River in Russia 40,000 years ago. People there burned mammoth bone for fuel. Almost no trees stood on that landscape. Bone burns hot and slow once wood gets it going. Winter on the Don runs to -25. No part of a human body belongs there. Fire made the difference, and people kept moving north. Fire also changed what a tool could be. Pinnacle Point on the South African coast. Kyle Brown found silkreet buried under old hearths, held near 350 degrees for hours, then napped. Heat treated silkreet flakes cleaner and holds a finer edge. Somebody was running a recipe with a temperature and a waiting time. It was running 72,000 years ago. Older layers pushed the practice toward 164,000. Neanderthals took the same trick further. To fix a stone point onto a wooden shaft, they cooked birch bark down into tar. That needs roughly 350 degrees with the oxygen shut out. Lumps of it turned up at Campitello in Italy, in deposits near 200,000 years old, flint still embedded. Chemistry with no writing and no thermometer anywhere. The same method scales up from there. Pottery at Xianrendong Cave in China 20,000 years ago. Clay held above 500 degrees until it stops being clay. Copper smelted at Belivode in Serbia around 5000 BCE. That takes 1100 degrees inside a small clay furnace. Iron needs 1200 degrees and a bellows working constantly. It spread across the Old World after 1200 BCE. Behind each number sits a temperature somebody learned to hold. The hearth did something to the group as well. Kesem Cave sits 12 kilometers east of Tel Aviv. Ruth Shahak Gross studied a patch of ash there, 4 square meters wide, built up in layers. Generations return to the same spot to burn wood. The ash runs 300,000 years old. Around it, the debris sorts into zones. Butchery in one area, flint knapping in another. Somebody had decided where things happen. The fire also moved the clock. Near the equator, darkness runs 12 hours every night all year round, and that time used to be dead. Firelight added 4 or 5 usable hours. Hours spent sitting still, facing each other, fed, warm, with nothing urgent left to handle. Hands worked cordage and hides. Voices did the rest. Teaching a skill takes time and light. The hearth supplied both every night for the cost of wood. None of this arrived free. Wood smoke carries fine particulates and carbon monoxide. It goes into lungs sitting a meter from the flame. Cooking smoke still kills about 3.2 million people yearly, mostly women and children in poorly ventilated kitchens. The World Health Organization counted that for 2020. We have been breathing it for 1 million years. The fire also had to be kept alive. Somebody watched it, fed it, carried it between camps. Lose it on a wet night in a cold place and you might wait days to get it back. The dependence only ran in one direction. Jaws shrank, guts shrank, brains grew. By then the arrangement had stopped being optional. Look at what that flame turned into. A hearth holds a controlled burn inside a ring of stones. A steam engine holds one under a boiler. Thomas Newcomen built a working engine in 1712 to pump water out of English coal mines. The coal fed the fire that drained the mine. One large coal plant burns millions of tons a year. A car engine detonates fuel thousands of times per minute. Around 80% of the energy humanity uses this year will come from setting something on fire. The same trick from Wonderwerk Cave, scaled up and boxed in steel. Carbon meets oxygen, heat comes out. 1 million years of the same reaction. We only got better at aiming the heat. Everything humans built afterward ran on that heat, started, held, and handed to the next group. It began with somebody in a cave, feeding a flame.